Welcome to a CDH Scion of the Ur-Dragon deck list. Now, for those of you who actually know about Scion of the Ur-Dragon, you're probably curious how this could be CDH level, or anybody who loves Scion of the Ur-Dragon, they're trying to make it a CDH. This is the deck list for that, because I will guarantee people will be surprised and be like, oh, that deck's not too much of a worry, it's more of a high-powered deck. No, this deck is super reliable, it's crazy, and stuff like that. Most people, they look at it and they're like, oh, all five colors and 5 mana value, that's too high for a CDH deck. Or you got to pay 2 and make it become a dragon that's like 7 mana altogether in one turn. Trust me, it can happen in a CDH game, and it's not even the card that we rely on. We kind of throw him out there just so he could get removed. Want him to be removed so that our other pieces won't get removed. But if he doesn't get removed because people underestimate this deck, Scion of the Ur-Dragon will overwhelm most of your games. Once he gets his first attack trigger through or something like that, it's pretty much game over, and it's a downward spiral for all players who regret letting this dragon go through. So yeah, we'll run through the deck list, and then I'll show you gameplay to back it all up. And let's get started. So this deck runs 8 sorceries altogether. We got Channel the Suns, Dam, Demonic Tutor, Period Seals, Abandon of Wind, Winds of Abandon, 3 Visits, Profane Tutor, Nature's Lore. Now, I'll explain Profane Tutor later because you know it's a suspend card, but there's a way to cheat that out without doing the suspend and casting it for free. Then Channel the Suns, it's a 4 mana, 1 green, both 3 and then a green. And this is what's going to cause us to cast our commander like basically turn 1 or turn 2. It happens most of the time we're casting the commander from turn 3 to 5. The average is definitely 4. So by turn 4, you have the commander out and etc. The first 2 turns is kind of like setup. But if you could get the commander out in the first 2 turns, it's pretty bad. Someone needs to remove the piece, and if they don't, then the game is yours pretty much. It's almost guaranteed. But yeah, Damn, because it has overload cost to remove the whole board. Demonic Tutor, self-explanatory. Winds of Abandon. The reason why I don't run the other overload card that returns everything to the hand, because Winds of Abandon works better with my deck because it exiles all my opponents and it gives them basic lands for every creature they've exiled. But not every deck runs basic lands, which you'd be surprised, but it actually does happen because some decks really can't run basic lands and benefits them more to not run basic lands. So it happens quite often where you're going against a deck or a couple of decks that aren't running basic lands, and they're like, well, I don't run basic lands, I'm not searching for any land. Now we're moving on to the artifacts. We have 17 artifacts. It's kind of artifact heavy. I mean, most CDH decks kind of are. So we got Arcane Signet, Chromatic Lantern, Chromox, Fellware Stone, Ice-Cron Scepter, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal, Soul Ring, Talisman of Curiosity, Talisman of Dominance, Talisman of Resilience, and the One Ring to top it off. Actually, no, we got Wishclaw Talisman. How could I forget that? That card's like game ender right there. Everything here is pretty self-explanatory. I've actually been playtesting the One Ring a lot, and I don't disagree with it. Sometimes you'll get it out like turn 1, which is the main goal, because this whole deck is all about gathering as much resources, out-resourcing your opponents, especially, or at least removal of your opponents. And drawing cards is an essential. Now with this deck, we only have 9 creatures, I'm sorry. So we have 9 creatures. Ancient Silver Dragon. So, Scion's on board, right? No one dealt with it. They didn't counter it because they didn't know that there's powerful dragons, or whatever the reason was. They're saving it for a win con, right? They don't see that when Ancient Silver Dragon, you roll a d20 equal to the roll. That's how many cards we're going to draw out of that d20. And you know, the average is 10, and normally 10 is all we really need to win the game. And having no maximum hand size for the rest of the game is insane. And don't get me started on the fact of actually rolling a perfect 20. It feels so good. So good. Guaranteed win, never lost with rolling a 20. Honestly, guaranteed win, haven't lost if I rolled more than a 10. Honestly. So it's been pretty good. I mean, yeah, I've come into games where I've only rolled a 3, but it didn't cost me the game. Honestly, you only really need to draw 4 cards or more to stay to be able to win, to have the high probability of winning the game. Then we have our infinite mana source, which basically we turn Scion of the Ur-Dragon into once we get infinite mana and cast Scion, then do this guy's ability, pay 8, and deal 4 damage to each opponent. And we just keep doing that, and we just kill the whole table. And no one ever sees that coming. They're like, okay, you got infinite mana, what are you going to do with it? And then I happen to have an empty hand, and then I cast my commander, and then they're like, oh, it's already too late, I've already let them do what they want. I thought they were just dumping their grave or something with Scion. But they don't realize that this card ever came out. Then we got Birds of Paradise, Dockside of Extortionist, Elvish Spirit Guide, Ignoble Hierarch, Simeon Spirit Guide, Thassa's Oracle, and Velomachus Lorehold. See, this is so I will play Scion of the Ur-Dragon. If I have 2 extra mana left, I will use Sion's ability. So I go straight into Velomachus Lorehold. Now the reason for that is if we don't have any protection spells to protect our commander, or we definitely believe it's going to get removed soon because people actually know how this deck works, or you're playing with your friends or whatever. So you want to go straight into this immediately before they can actually do something once it's their turn. But if you have protection, then yeah, Ancient Silver Dragon will be your second turn kind of swing and roll d20 kind of thing. So you have 2 options. So only 3 dragons in the deck really, and yeah, we don't rely heavily on the deck. It kind of just overwhelms the opponent. And sometimes, yeah, it can be our last option because we kind of outplayed our hand and they out-resourced us somehow, some reason, misplay, or whatever the reason could be. Yeah, the dragons could be our last resource. Now, this deck only has 4 enchantments. Underworld Breach. Self-explanatory. We got the Lion's Eye Diamond. We got the Brain Freeze, which we'll get to later. Then we have Rhystic Study. Rhystic Study has won me so many games because so many people out there. Rhystic Study technically shouldn't be a good card in my opinion because as long as you pay the 1, normally the game is pretty settled. But everybody has this opinion, or a lot of people have this opinion, I'm never going to pay for Rhystic. You draw your pathetic card. And every time I've been in a game and I've seen people with Rhystic, if it's not paid for, that player is like more than 75% chance of winning the game. That's what I've experienced. I don't know about you. You've played through people having Rhystic on board and you ended up winning or whatever it may be the case. But I just noticed that every time I play this card, I'm winning because there's some fool in the game that's like, nah, who cares? You draw your card. And then I end up winning because drawing is what this deck really, really does. Necropotence, the more draw, I can never have enough draw. And Necropotence kind of becomes crazy if I've already used my commander's ability to use Ancient Silver Dragon's ability to have no maximum hand size, which becomes insane. Mystic Remora, basically your Rhystic Study. Mystic Remora, been super duper helpful. Sometimes it's not entirely helpful and hasn't really done much, but because the players are being smart. I don't know why people will be smart with Mystic Remora, but they won't be smart with Rhystic Study. I don't get it because they know they can wait it out and they're just gonna convince me that like, oh, I'm not gonna keep paying for this. I'm not doing it. But no, I usually keep paying. Like I'll pay it out if everybody's just waiting to not do a thing. Like that's fine with me. I mean, I won't pay it out for playing against an aggro deck of some sort that's gonna start swinging at me. I need to start playing creatures. But yeah, now this deck has, I mean, not now. Well, this deck has 26 instances. We got Adnaz, Angel's Grace. I love this combo. People don't see it coming, and then once it happens, they're like, oh my god. That's pretty cool. I mean, 6 mana is kind of high, but I mean, like, what combo isn't, like, super duper high? English Unmaking, exiles a target non-land, permanent. This deck is mostly just removing permanents. See, we got the exile versions, we got the ones that destroy permanents. Eastleton destroys. Brain Freeze for the Underworld Breach. Ball Ritual. Chaos Warp. More removal. Dark Ritual. More mana. Deflecting Swat. Great card. Definitely have seen people play Peer into the Abyss and I deflecting swat it and I draw all the cards. Or something insane, or it helps like counter stuff. Go on. Demonic Consultation for the Thassa's Oracle line. D-Spark. Dramatic Reversal for infinite mana. Enlightened Tutor for the enchantments that I want to draw as many. And the low occasion that we're going to get an artifact with that. Fierce Guardianship, free counterspells. Who wouldn't? Flusterstorm, free counterspells. Basically unstoppable. Generous Gift, destroy permanent. Mystical Tutor, search up any instant or sorcery, which is normally going to be our next guy right here, Pact of Creation, or Adnos. Path to Exile, more removal. Resculpt, more removal. Stroke of Midnight, brand new removal, super duper cheap too. Swan Song, counter. Swords of Plowshare, removal. Tainted Pact, basically draw, but it's not drawing, so we get to go around cards that don't say that we're drawing. Vampiric Tutor. What tutor card? Tutor cards are always the greatest. Now, this deck has 35 lands, which is kind of controversial because normally decks run about like 25 to 30. 30 being max, 25 I believe is the lowest I've ever seen for lands. And we're running 5 extra than the max, and it's because we're a 5 color deck. And the crazy thing, since we're running 5 colors, the best thing about this is that some of these lands, one of them is a removal, and then we have the other 4 colored ones that do other things that can be super duper useful. I'll explain later once we get to it. So first off, we got the expensive one right here, Badlands, Arc Channel Pathway, Bayou, Blightstep Pathway, Bloodstained Mire, Beseiju Who Endures, basically removes artifact enchantment or non-basic land, and then they gotta search for a basic land type. Branchloft Pathway, City of Brass, Mantower, Red Crown, Pathway, Darkboard Pathway, Ganju, Seat of the Empire. Now, only one time in one gameplay that I've had that where this actually saved me and saved the table actually, and no one saw it coming. They can't counter because it's a channel ability kind of thing, and it was able to remove a creature that was just really destroying us. But yeah, Fabled Passage, Forest, Gemstone Cavern, Island, Mana Confluence, Misty Rainforest, Mountain, Ottawa Soaring City. Ottawa Soaring City is probably the second best out of the channeling lands. The Ganju, Seat of the Empire, is the third best. Second best because this can return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. Sometimes it's defending, but what normally is what has been the gameplay on is to use the channel ability to return Dockside Extortionist and then cast Dockside Extortion and keeping load more treasures. Doing it that way. Then we got Plains, Polluted Delta, Prismatic Vista, Savannah, Scrubland, Zentuko, Crucible of Defiance. This one's pretty good. It's tied with the white one, in my opinion. Just puts up blockers or anytime it's just helped out actually quite a bit. I'll just channel it because I can, and having 2 extra creatures seems to be a good helping hand when I'm facing like aggro decks or decks that force me to sacrifice creatures, and I don't want to sacrifice my commander because I don't play a lot of creatures. And then Swamp, Taiga, Takenuma, Abandoned Mire. This is probably the worst one. I have never actually needed to use this ability. More likely playing it than using the ability. Tropical Island, Underground Sea, Verdant Catacombs, Volcanic Island, Windswept Heath, Wooded Foothills, and yeah, that's it for the lands. Yeah, the lands are pretty interesting. I run one of each basic. Tried to only have 5 basics in the deck, just in case I need to get to a basic or whatever the reason is. Oh, freaking the moon guy turns all non-basics and I have cards that search out basics too in this deck, so it doesn't become a problem, and I can search out basics, get my basics, and I'll be okay when someone plays Magus of the Moon or whatever, maybe in the. But yeah, this deck is mostly a control kind of counter, removal, everything inside. Make sure to outdraw my opponents, moving their heuristics or whatever that gives them more card advantage than me. Basically, this deck is designed to just card advantage, out card advantage your opponent. That's basically all it is. Get Scion of the Ur-Dragon turn 1 or 2. Definitely going to follow it up with an Ancient Silver Dragon, or if you have enough mana, Valamakus Lorehold. And Valamakus Lorehold's ability will actually let you cast Profane Tutor for free, which is insane. Yeah, and then you can accidentally add Naws or use a removal when you do the Valamakus thing. You need to remove something if it's not in your hand or whatever. But yeah, anything I might have missed before I show you the gameplay of everything? Yeah, the gameplay is gonna be pretty much self-explanatory. I remember there's a few things. I was gonna talk about the weakness of the deck and the strengths of the deck. So, the types of decks, the ideal games, when you look around the commander table and you're looking at the other commanders that you're facing off against, if it's a blue farm deck, then you're gonna know, you're gonna have to understand what you're gonna mulligan, what you're not gonna mulligan, etc. If you have like crazy draw spells in your hand, you're facing off with like blue decks and stuff like that, you you want to keep those type of hands for the blue decks, or even just removal spells if you got removal with draw spells or whatever, because you're just gonna want to remove their resources and make sure they use their resources to counter whatever you're gonna do from your hand and etc. To make sure you remove their commander if you see their commander like causes them to draw and stuff like that. Like that commander's got to go. That's that's basically the summary of it. The weakness of this deck is definitely that if they can out resource you, if they're outdrawing you, most likely you might be out of the game, or at least you could be second place in like the threat level, but you might get outpaced by that blue player because if they have a heuristic study or whatever, their commander allows them to draw absurd cards, then yeah, if you don't have a removal for it, then it it could be kind of handful. You kind of have to know the commanders that you're facing. Now, if you're playing against stacks decks, um, you can actually rely on them. There's been plenty of games where there's a stacks deck, two blue players, you know, they draw like crazy. So I make sure I draw like crazy and um drawing like crazy. They're not too worried about what I'm gonna do. They're kind of worried about the other blue player or the stacks player. Now, at this point, when a stacks player is on board, we're almost guaranteed the we can actually go hand in hand with stacks. Because as long as we can set up the draw, as long as we can and we could get around cards that stop us from drawing and etc. You know, like Necropotence or um, Ad Naus or Tainted Pact or whatever it is, and it gets us into our removal spells to remove certain um, stack pieces. We basically remove the stack pieces when we're ready to remove. So we're drawn till we're ready to get rid of stack pieces. That's so we could go off and win. That's kind of how this works. Like a stacks deck, most decks have a huge complaint against. But with this deck, there's no complaint whatsoever with stacks decks. You love stacks decks. Stacks decks become like your best friend. It can buy you time, or it could actually give you the push that you need so that your opponents can't do anything. Because we can actually get around stack decks pretty well, and it should be fine. Nothing, no harm, no foul. Because we can remove them and stuff like that. And we're just trying to outdraw our opponents and everything. Creature decks and aggro decks can be kind of a handful because you can't really counter them, so that's why there's also a lot of removal in this deck. Yeah, if you seem to mulligan down to like a very low amount, um, you may be screwed. I'm not gonna lie. There's only been a couple of occasions where I've mulliganed down to 3 or 4, and I've ended up winning the game because I had a heuristic study or a necropotence. Yeah, with that said, this deck is actually a really solid deck. Scion of the Ur-Dragon is very underestimated. The build that I built for it, I think it's really good. I've been playtesting it and everything like that. I'm gonna show you some gameplay with it. The deck is more of a mid-range kind of thing. It can win like turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, etc. But it's more of a control mid-range kind of thing. You'll definitely be sitting back, removing spells or countering spells, and just drawing. Just like any other blue farm kind of deck, except for the removal part, because we're very versatile how we're gonna remove. And the reason why I'm heavy on exiles because cards that reanimate or decks that reanimate. So we're kind of prepared for pretty much everything. I mean, I'm not saying this deck is perfect. Trust me, I've lost plenty of games, but I'm just saying that this deck definitely wins as much as like a Kinnan deck does. This game is going to be pretty quick. We're just going to be facing off with only 2 other players, Najeela the Blade Blossom and Urza Lord High Artificer. So before we get started, Najeela plays the Gemstone Caverns for pregame action, and that's it. I'm going to start my turn now. I'm going to play Windswept Heath and crack it, bringing my life to 39. Playing a Bayou. tapping the Bayou to play Bird's Paradise. Now passing my turn to Urza. Urza will play an island, tap it for a Serum Visions, which is try to draw a card. Now passes to Najeela's turn. Najeela playing Underground Sea and exiling an Elvish Spirit Guide and tapping the Gemstone Cavern and the Underground Sea to play Najeela. Now passing it back to us, play Plains, cast a Fellware Stone. Urza then plays an island, cast a Chain of Vapor, targeting Najeela. Najeela casting a free Fierce Guardianship. Now for Najeela's turn, they're going to cast Lotho Corrupt Sheriff. Then moving to combat and swinging with Najeela, causing me 4 damage. With the Windswept Teeth, bringing my life total to 35. Now with our turn, we're going to play Ottawa's Soaring City. Now we will cast the Commander. And pass the turn. Urza will start off by playing another island and then casting Spellseeker. With Spellseeker's ETB trigger, searching for a dramatic reversal, revealing it to everyone and putting it into his hand. Now the Najeela player just goes straight to combat and just swings at the Urza player. Probably because it revealed the dramatic reversal and also being afraid that I would block his commander. That's also another viable thing, actually. So, yeah. So now it's my turn, and I'm going to play the Genju Seat of Empire. And they've made the mistake of underestimating what Scion of the Ur-Dragon can do for the game. So we're going to use Scion's ability, turn him into Ancient Silver Dragon. Now the table has realized what would happen if Ancient Silver Dragon's ability goes off. Once I connect with somebody, roll a d20 and draw whatever the results of that d20, and I don't have any maximum hand size for the rest of the game, which is insane. So Najeela decides, alright, I'm going to cast Tainted Pact. Urza, we're not too worried about, unless, like, Pact of Negation, which I doubt Urza would play, or Force of Will or something like that, to be able to stop what will happen later on, but we're not too worried about it, because, you know, that's, like, one of 2 cards that could happen. Now, through Tainted Pact, Najeela was able to find Deadly Rollick, which I would be worried about, but I happen to have a Flusterstorm in hand, so I'm able to counter Deadly Rollick, and the table isn't going to have an answer for any of this. So we are going to swing our 8/8 commander straight to Najeela player's face. Now we're going to roll d20 and get a 16. So we're going to draw 16 cards. Then to exile Elvish the Spirit Guide to cast Mana Vault. With Mana Vault on board, we tap it, have 2 floating colorless to play Soul Ring. Next we'll play we'll play Isochron Scepter with the 2 floating colorless. Now the Najeela player will cast the Offer I Can't Refuse, which is fine because I've actually kind of the Offer You Can't Refuse actually doesn't change anything whatsoever. So the Isochron Scepter will get countered. Now I gain 2 treasures. I'm going to tap Soul Ring, Fellwar Stone to cast Wishclaw Talisman. Then I'm going to use the 1 less floating colorless mana that's floating to use Wishclaw Talisman's ability to search my deck for a card, which is going to be a Pact of Negation. Then to finish it off, we use the 2 treasures and the Birds of Paradise to cast Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation to win this game. Alright, here we go. So for this game, it's going to be a prime example why you don't let blue players draw. It doesn't matter what it is. If you see a Ristic, you need that countered, get it removed, because as soon as a blue player is starting to draw up some cards, it's over. It's pretty much over, because they have, like, basically one of the most free interactions, especially when it comes to counter. Like, they just control the board at this point. Now here we go with one of our opponents, the Nimri's Una's Trickster. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not very familiar with this commander. It's flash flying. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of those cards into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Basically, classic draw engine blue thing. Next, we have Gandalf, Westward Voyager. He's a 5 mana commander like ours. Yeah, whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, each opponent reveals the top cards of their library. If any of those cards share a card type with that spell, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy, and each opponent draws a card. Otherwise, you draw a card. Here we are. We got a Kinnan player. So, good old-fashioned Kinnan Bonder Prodigy. Everybody knows what this guy does. He's like basically what everybody runs in CDH. The meta, you know? Alright, for this game, we're going first. I drew into Mana Confluence. So we're going to play Lion's Eye Diamond. Then we're going to play our Verdant Catacombs to go search for a Bayou. Then we'll tap the Bayou to cast Imperial Seal. Alright, the Fairy Commander played an Island, then a Soul Ring. Tap the Soul Ring for an Arcane Signet. Classic move. Classic. The Gandalf player, he played a Command Tower, then tapped it for an Elvish Mystic. Kinnan player just played a Forest and then a Soul Ring, then passed turn to us. So now, we're going to draw what we tutored. This turn, we're going to play Plains, and then we're going to cast Nature's Lore, which then gets us a Tropical Island. We'll pass to the Fairy player. He's going to tap his Soul Ring to play Talisman of Dominance. He's going to tap his Island and his Arcane Signet for a Demonic Tutor. The Gandalf player is going to tap for 3, play to land, tapping his Mystic Elvish and 2 lands. Gandalf ended up playing Cultivate. It's a forest and an island. Passes turn to the Kinnan player. Kinnan player exiles Koma for his Chromox. And he plays a Windswept Heath. Cracks it for a Tropical Island. Then taps his 2 lands to go straight into a Kinnan play. Then he passes along to us. We're going to draw into a Path to Exile. Next, we're going to play Mana Confluence. Then we're going to cast the Heuristic Study after that. And we're going to pass turn. So now we have option to draw, and we have removal to protect us. Depending if they go aggro, which they probably won't, but anything could happen. Fairy player played their commander. Has 1 land left. Could probably play a card. They don't pay. We get to draw for the Heuristic Study. I pass. Gandalf plays the Tireless Prisoner. They play Mirage Mirror, which copies a creature enchantment. Artifact, I believe. Ask if they pay. I don't think they're paying. We're going to draw another card. Okay, here goes another thing. Someone's responding. The Fairy player. Trying to. Oh, Stifle? Counter target. Oh, he's trying to counter. Okay, so he counters that, but in response to that, I still draw. Oh, he's trying to use his Fairy's ability so he can scry 2, put 1 in hand, and then put 1 into the grave. Okay, I see. I see what he's doing. I knew that. Alright, it's our turn again. Okay, I like the look of this right here. Alright, we drew into a Pact of Negation, untapped everything, played a Swamp, played Wishclaw Talisman. Yeah, we passed our turn. They played Mystic Remora. Okay, so Fairy played Island, then tapped it for Mystic Remora. Oh, he paid, so we didn't draw. Good boy, good boy. That's what happened there. Alright, our boy Gandalf is trying to cast Cultivate. Fairy dude got a response for it, which is the worst freaking thing that you can have a response for. Opposition agent, and then he's gonna scry with his commander. First spell not on his turn. Which is really unfortunate. Sucks. This is where it's gonna get a bit complicated. Alright, we have another alert response. Kinnan is gonna cast Mana Drain. Pay attention. Oh, Fierce Guardianship. Okay. Yeah, he's negating the Mana Drain. Yeah. There's nothing we're gonna do with that. We're not gonna stop the opposition. That needs to hit, no matter what. That's so crazy. Yeah, we're gonna draw 4 cards. So things got a little complicated because of the Mystic Remora and the Rhystic Study that was going on while they casted 4 different spells. Mirage Mirror was acted by the Kinnan player to copy opposition agent. Basically, by turn priority, what we've agreed on was that, I'm not sure, you can tell me if it's wrong, but the Kinnan player gets to control the ninja player, which is basically Gandalf, which is really unfortunate for Gandalf because Gandalf is getting hit hard for all of this. I'm just watching them use up their counter spells while we're drawing up into wins and counter spells and removal. Now it's the Kinnan's player's turn. They play an island. Step 2 for an arcane signet. The Gandalf player decided to leave. I don't blame him. But yeah, terrible news. The Kinnan player also casted Sphinx. Here he is, Consecrated Sphinx. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. Now, I have an option to get rid of this. So, I'm going to place Swords to Plowshare, right? Yeah, that's Swords to Plowshare. And it's going to target that Sphinx. Now, the fairy guy, his Mystic Remora is going to go off, and then once he draws, he gets to... The Sphinx allows the Kinnan player draw 2. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it does really, really matter. But at least we've gotten rid of the Consecrated Sphinx because we're going to be drawing a ton. And for him to outdraw us like that, that's a big no-no. Like, I want to get rid of Mystic Remora, but I'm thinking he's going to do it on his own, but he's really not. Because I think he's noticed that we're all just... Well, everybody seems to be slinging spells. Alright, no responses. Consecrated Sphinx is exiled. Alright, on EOT, end of turn, of the Kinnan player, the fairy player plays Drown in the Loch, which he's planning to use to destroy target creature, which is going to be Kinnan, the only option. So I'm going to have a response to him destroying Kinnan, which is going to be... What's the other one? Oh, Path to Exile. So I'm going to tap Mana Confluence, lose life, going down 36. We're going to do Path to Exile, targeting the opposition agent. I don't see any reason why we won't win if we can search. Third response. I think he's got a response. Alright, the Kinnan player decides to use his Mirage. Copy Mystic Remora. So the fairy player gets to draw because I played Path. Okay, yeah, we got a stack going on. So he played Lock onto Kinnan. I played Path onto Opposition Agent. Now he's gonna play that. I'm gonna draw from Lock, and I'm also gonna draw from Pact. Everything kind of resolves. People start drawing. The Kinnan player accidentally drew 1 too many, and yeah, he was supposed to only draw 1. So now, now looking at the footage and everything like that, I realized that. So I don't know if he drew into this Fierce Guardianship, but yeah, he's using the Fierce Guardian. Well, he probably definitely did. I don't know if it was 1 draw, he did 1 more. But it doesn't matter. So yeah, he uses the Fierce Guardianship to protect his Kinnan on the stack, which gives me another draw. Now he's going to Mindbreak Trap. Alright, everything goes through, and we just drew 3 more cards from all the resolution. And yeah, now we're gonna draw for turn. We just untapped and it's our turn. And would you look at that? There's just a Mystic Remora, an opposition agent on board. Both of my opponents are tapped out. So, knowing my hand right now, we got this in the bag. Alright, so we're gonna channel Boseiju Who Endures to destroy the Mystic Remora so he can't draw, so we can just start casting whatever we want. I also made the stupid mistake of playing Lotus Petal first. I should have channeled, then Lotus Petal. Now we're going to tap 2 lands for Winds of Abandonment, so that we can exile Opposition Agent. Then he plays an offer you can't refuse, and I honestly can't refuse treasure tokens. So we're not going to do anything about that counter. Because 2 treasures, which basically means we only use 2 mana, which we got any kind of color mana. Which is another reason why an offer you can't refuse has guaranteed us the win at this point. Also, the funny part is that we also get a Rhystic draw. I forgot about that. Oh, and his commander triggers too, because he casted that. My turn. There we go. 2 treasures. I'm gonna play Mire. Crack the Mire for a... Wait, before I crack the Mire, there's still an opposition agent on the board. So we're gonna play Dam by sacrificing the treasures first. Which then the Dam will get rid of the opposition agent. We can use our Mire to get our... What do you call it? Badland. He has no response. He's used a lot of counter spells. Everything's just not going well. They both exhausted their resources. No mana, nothing. They got nothing going on right now. We're gonna tap the Badlands for Witch Call Talisman. We're gonna give it to the Kinnan player, which then is gonna make us search for, and we'll finish it off by casting Underworld Breach. And we have Pact of Negation in hand, just in case they did have something up their hand, like the Kinnan player, but no one has anything. We have Lion's Eye Diamond already on board, and unfortunately for them, I have Brain Freeze. Right now they're conversing. They're going to be conversing with each other just to see if they have anything. But yeah, that's pretty much game at that point. They both confirmed they don't have anything. Yeah, then I reveal the Brain Freeze in my hand.